You're listening to the All Equity Podcast with Kevin Marcus Miller.
Hi.
What's up?
How you doing?
Pretty good. How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good. Yeah, I'm curious to talk to you about this one thing and get your take on. I was talking with my therapist yesterday, and she broke down. Have you ever heard of the codependency triangle?
Briefly, but refresh me. I can imagine it.
Okay, so it's basically an unhealthy cycle where everyone has to be a part. And so there's three players. And so you can either be the victim, the perpetrator, or the rescuer. And in most of our lives, especially in our personal lives, we like to think we're the victim, right? And the way the system is set up, that particular triangle is actually not what we want. We actually want to be outside of the triangle with boundaries. Mm-hmm. And so we're all so ingrained to be a part of this. We go from rescuer to victim, and then the next week we're perpetrator. Mm-hmm. And so in my own life, I was looking at what areas I might be doing that, or in my business. And I was like, this is like a really big emotional deposit in my life right now.
Yeah.
I feel like it definitely applies to marketing for sure, and money for sure, because most people think they're the victim.
Yeah.
But who are they codependent on? What system are they codependent on?
Right. We assume a victim role so that we don't have to be responsible for the outcome that we're looking at. You know, my business didn't grow the pace that I wanted, and it was external factors. You know, especially recently, we've had lots of external factors that allow us to.
Right, because everyone puts the COVID, right? But we all are experiencing that. So you're letting COVID be in that triangle as the perpetrator, but you're choosing to let that be and being in that system.
Exactly. You're allowing, even though we're all, I don't like that term, we're all in the same boat, but the idea that we're all in the same storm.
Yes.
You know, this is a storm that everyone globally experienced. We have different, vessels, different ships that we're on navigating, but we can allow that to be the thing, or we can decide to pivot and I guess move into the rescuer position and try to overcome the thing. So, but it's interesting, like, how do you break free from that triangle? How do you be an observer? I guess it's that conscious mindfulness, like present consciousness, that if we are able to just observe things as just happening and not happening to us, but they are just things that are happening, then we can allow for that space to create boundaries. Yeah,
one of the things my therapist said was to jolt the system. A lot of the times, one of the three players leaves the system. So, like, another example, like, easier for people to grasp is for sure. Like, let's say you move back in with your mom, right?
Yeah.
Right, and now your mom is actually the victim because you're in her space, and you want your boyfriend or whatever to come over now, right? But now you feel like the victim because your mom's saying your boyfriend can't come over.
Yeah.
Right? And that you're in that codependency trial because you're all codependent in that house. But what if you decide, oh, well, my mom, this is her space, so I'm going to just get my own place.
Yeah.
You removed yourself from the codependency triangle.
Right.
And most people aren't willing to do that. Or if there's an issue in your business, oh, well, I need to invest some money, some credit.
Yeah.
Right? You removed yourself from that codependency triangle of maybe you had an excuse that was part of the system.
Yes. I'm the bottleneck. So if I actually remove myself from this flow, I'm stopping the flow. And often that's a great question to ask yourself, like, where am I the bottleneck here? Where am I stopping, slowing, crowding, preventing things from flowing as they're supposed to? But it does take a lot of self-awareness to stop and look at it, whether that's your money, whether that's your business, whether that's your relationships, the family flow, whatever it is, friendship groups. Like,
don't even get me started about friendship groups.
Right? Like, am I the one that makes it so we can't all get together? Or like, let's really have that self-awareness and build that self-mastery so we can identify those things and leave the system and make that space or disrupt that system, right?
For sure.
If you aren't the three, then it can't continue.
Right. So for you, in terms of like what you do as a financial coach, do you think that most people are choosing to stay in that triangle? And so you are the disruptor, you're the jolt to their existing system?
I I feel like that might be codependent of me to assume of myself, but often what I see when people do make the decision to get help is they're on some level aware that they're in this cycle, right? Yeah. And they would like to disrupt it, but they don't know how. And so they're reaching out for help to figure out, like, how do I, take this off ramp? Like, how do I exit this scenario? Whether it's they overspending, whether it's they have a debt issue, whether it's their just lifestyle, they've managed to convince themselves that all of the things that they spend every month are necessary. A lot of people, debt is not even the issue. It's their lifestyle is such that they have to get the best childcare, which of course everybody wants that. But I'm like, you're losing $600 a month to work and put your kids in this childcare. Like, and then once they see that, they're like, oh, I'm totally committing to being in the victim. Like, oh, there's no money in, but it's my kids and I have to. And
yes.
Right. And it's, well, we really value gymnastics. And so we have to do the thing that's $900 a month for this kid, and which means we have to do it for that kid as well. And you don't have to do anything, right? You can choose to do whatever it is that's important to you. But like, this is the boundary. You go free in here, but this is the boundary. You told me this was important, and how are we going to get there? So I think I can help people along the road of already knowing that they're in this, whether they know to call it the codependency triangle, or whether it's just a matter of like, something's not right. And I seem to be doing this over and over and over, and month over month, it's the same story. They want a disruption. And so they're looking for help with that in hopefully a gentle way. Sometimes it's an upheaval, we dig up all that rotting stuff underneath, and without support, you might be tempted to just cover it back up again, right? How
are you able to get support? What was the turning point for you in your system?
For my own personal financial system.
Yep.
For me, I had a big disruption. It was, looking up and realizing we were about to have our third child. We had $100,000 in debt. And that was wait a second, we don't have a house. It was credit cards and student loans and a vehicle payment and all of these things. And so I went sort of deep into the personal finance world and the internet. And I discovered a certain guru who is very strict, very shame driven, has his baby steps. And I started to do that. And I also found a software that helped. But what happened was I went from this avoidant place with my money, whatever, we'll just work, everything will work out, head in the sand. And then I swung super hard into a really anxious, no one talk while I do the budget. It was just I was so wound. And then we opened a restaurant, I had saved a bunch of money for an emergency fund.
Yeah, break that down. How did you go from doing all this budget stuff to saying, I'm just going to open the restaurant? What was the...
Oh, well, part of our debt was we own a restaurant, and we opened a full service restaurant. So we went from having quick service restaurant, cafeteria style. And then we were, going to do the big fancy have full service, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, brunch. We're doing it all.
Wow.
And the reality of that in that industry is on a great year, you make a nickel. It's not, the restaurant industry margins are, particularly full service.
Wow.
Make 5 cents on the dollar on a great year. It is not a high margin.
Wow. That's huge. 5%.
Yeah, it's rough.
That's a huge gem for people, for real.
Yeah, that's,
wow.
It's you have to be driven by passion. And I'm married to a person he's so passionate about what he does, and he has passion about his mission to share Filipino food.
Yep.
So part of our $100,000 of debt was getting we had a food truck, and then we went into the university, and now we're making this next big step. And that was June of 2019. And so, okay, we've done this thing. Now he can't take a salary for a while.
Exactly.
No problem. I have an emergency fund. Everything's fine. And then we used that emergency fund, and we got our legs under us, and then the pandemic hit. And then I was out of work because I had just started my coaching business, and I was a massage therapist. So now I'm out of work. My coaching business, made $700 the first year. It was just
Woo, that hurts. I think my very, very first year I ever tried was $2,000 and $2,000 in 2015, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I've done significantly better now, but the part of that was the pandemic hit. We were in crisis mode, and I went into this personal finance space where I had been sort of building an audience. I'd sort of started to meet some people, and it was filled with shame. I told you so. You should have had an emergency fund. How could you be so dumb? You need to be prepared. I was like, I'm experiencing a full crisis, and I had an emergency fund, and the timing just wasn't right. And it was just filled with shame. And I was like, oh, I'm out. I'm not doing this. Like, I had sort of like developed this method of not so much tracking, and I just sort of starting the baby development phase. And I just was like, I can't participate until I don't make people feel this way. I never want to make people feel like I friggin' told you so, you dummy, which is sometimes the language that gets used in personal finance. Oh, you have a credit card? You're a moron. Like, it is really that every space can have shame, right? People use it. It's low hanging.
Especially in food and stuff too.
Oh, body. There's so many parallels between diet culture and money culture. And so I started to expand my echo chamber in different areas where people had a no shame approach. And then with that, I recoiled in my business. And then I started to develop a way to manage your money for folks who don't love to keep track and manage a spreadsheet and do all of the little tedious things and the stuff that gets too overwhelming. And so I use, strategic banking. And in that time off, I really developed a system that's rooted in security and gratitude and joy for yourself now and joy for yourself in the future, like a financially.
Oh, say that again. That hit. Joy for yourself. What?
Joy for yourself now and joy for yourself in the future, right? So there, that future Kevin is cared for, but also that Kevin today gets to have fun without any guilt or worry or shame. And no, I can spend this money. I don't have to, no stress on that. I know everything that I said was important that I want is being managed first. And then I just go crazy with what's left, right? It's that here's the boundary, go wild in here, knowing if all you focus on is this number, the YOLO version of you is focused on this number, then the rest of the parts of you, the gratitude for those debts that, thank goodness we had that line of credit when we needed it. Thank goodness that credit card was there when I had to order pizza because I just at the end of my rope and I just couldn't do anything else for my kids or whatever it, those things that we spend money on that we're still paying off, we can switch our attitude and have gratitude for it. And we can approach it in such a way that we can be grateful for what it provided to us when we were doing the best that we could with what we had at the time, right? You're not an idiot because you use your line of credit to buy groceries. You're also not an idiot because you couldn't manage an online shopping habit. Like, there are so many things that get us into debt, and the online personal finance realm often is just like, well, if you're shopping, you're overdoing it, and it's starting a business, it's having kids unexpectedly, it's a medical emergency. In the States, 65% of bankruptcies are from medical debt. It's not always what you think. And there's always a story. I love Dr. Michael Thomas. He teaches out of the University of Georgia. Maybe, I'm not sure, but I'm not totally sure. But he sort of has this saying, like, there's always a story beneath the numbers, right? Context matters when you look at someone's financial picture. And I wanted to make sure that when I came back into the coaching realm, that I always had that in mind, that I always held empathy for someone's story first, and then we're going to get to problem solving. And sometimes we're going to have to do some things that are uncomfortable, but know that you are in charge. You get to make that decision, right? You're in control of your life, and you get to decide what the trajectory is. And everything that happened before today, baby, it's gone. Imagine if you just drop that in lava, that's not a thing anymore. There's no shame. There's no beating yourself up. There's no regretting, no adding up how much interest you pay. Don't do that to yourself. Let's just decide today that you want it to get better, and let's just take like aligned action in that direction. We don't have to add up how much we spent at a drive-through. That's not gonna make you feel good. You already know where your money went. You don't need to go make tallies, It's good to reflect if you're looking at it like data, but if you're reflecting in order to beat yourself up, in order to fuel shame, then it's kind of a wasted exercise. And it just gets you further from being able to take that action in the right direction, right?
Wow. So many different emotions come up. Like, I think I definitely did that in the beginning, have a lot of shame for sure.
Yeah.
I think I'm guilty of that.
Me too. We spent $400 eating out, and like I was at a point in my financial anxiety, where if my husband spent $3, I was like pulling my hair out.
Wow.
It was not okay. I was unwell. My mental health was not well. And it was because I was just like, how could you be so stupid? I was listening to the voices out in the personal finance world that were supposed to be supporting me. And the voices weren't saying, you know what? You've been raising 3 kids. You're doing the best that you can. They weren't saying, you look what you've accomplished. You built a business from literally nothing. You built a business. We built a restaurant from, how many orders did you get today? And my husband would lie and tell me 7 because it was actually 3. It was just like, we accomplished so much. And if we think about that, like, I'm so grateful that line of credit filled our tank of gas. I'm so grateful, that he has that student loan that got him the skills necessary to become an entrepreneur. He's not maybe actively using his degree, but he is on some level, right? He expanded to a point where he is using the skills that he learned in university, right? So I'm going to have gratitude when I make that payment, and I'm going to pay it off. But I'm going to have gratitude when I do it. And so we can have a sustainable strategy. We're going to not be afraid to invest. We're going to not be afraid to have a future fund for us so that when inevitably something goes wrong, we've got liquid cash for it.
How did you have that accountability without shame?
I think it was forgiveness. I think it's really, I do a lot of self-awareness work. I'm really into the Enneagram. And I don't know if you're familiar.
Not familiar with. Share with us. What is that?
So it's a personality typing, and there are 9 types. And I'm what's called an Enneagram 8, which is known as the protector. Other words are the aggressor or the challenger. So some of these people in your life, abrasive, loud, domineering, like intense, and opinionated. And when I learned sort of some of these things about myself, controlling, I was like, oh, damn. Like, I'm going to have to put some attention here. And through working through the Enneagram and working through some of the growth edges there, I found I often would have an opinion, and that was it, unmovable. And once I decided that I didn't need to have an unmovable opinion about something, I started to become more empathetic to others, right? I started to be able to view others with more empathy. Enneagram 8s often struggle with empathy. It's not the natural first, if someone cuts me off in traffic, my first thought is not, oh, they must be having an emergency. I'm having a different thought. But I can get there now going, oh, that's not happening to me. That's just something that happened, right? That's stepping outside of that codependency triangle.
Yeah.
And saying, that's not happening to me. I'm not the victim of this. That's just something that happened. Luckily, I'm a great driver,
I'm a terrible driver. Terrible.
Luckily, 8s have an innate confidence. We got, say it with your chest, right? We have a confidence. And so through developing empathy for others, I was able to turn that toward myself.
Right. And then you were able to be accountable because you actually wanted to be.
Yeah, because you can connect to why we're making this change. It's not because I want to punish myself.
Right.
When I started, it was a punishment. It was you were being bad, and therefore you need to be punished. So you get no fun. There's no spending. There's no wiggle room, nothing. Every cent is going to that thing that you have to pay back because you're bad. And once I realized that that's not a great motivator, because in fact, it's making me really unhealthy. It's damaging my marriage. It's damaging my relationship with my kids. It's costing the opportunity cost. Ooh. Like, damn, right? Like the cost of not allowing my kids a yes ever was too great. It's too great, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So that's I realized that shame's not a good motivator. And you can read about it. It's not. It's a short-term motivator. Doesn't help you to create lasting change. This is that railroad track with diet culture, right? We can crash diet, we can restrict and get really harsh. And what happens is we just go right back. And it's what happened to us. We paid off $30,000 in debt principal in 1 year. And we opened a restaurant. We were like, we're not making a ton of money. And then you swing back because you've restricted yourself so long that everything needs fixing. All your appliances go out. You got no cash for it. Like, it was just the universe just goes, you're going to do this with some gentleness. We're going to reel it back a little bit on you, and you're going to try this again. And so moving forward with a sustainable plan and a little bit of compassion for yourself.
Hence judgment-free money zone.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's is that your hashtag, your slogan, or what exactly is that?
Yeah, I use that judgment-free money zone because it's such a intimate part of yourself to share your finances with someone.
Exactly.
I want to ensure that people know that, like, I've seen it. I don't care. Like, I don't care if you had to get a payday loan. I don't care what it is. I've seen debt from adoptions that didn't go through. I've seen debt from, I just bought a bunch of clothes and now I'm in this hole. I've seen all the things. Know that I actually don't care. I also will never ask you what you spend your money on. I'm going to help you get your finances sorted, and that money that you use for joy, I don't care. There's no like clothing line, gift line. Like, no, I don't care. You want to use all of that eating out? I actually am excited for you. You want to collect wooden ducks? I'm excited for you. You do that. I'm not going to judge you in what is most important to you. So what do you value is individual to you. And that's not for me to decide.
It's an interesting coaching approach. I like that because I feel like a lot of coaches would say, no, it needs to go, if you have $1,000 budget you need to actually spend it in a tiered way.
Yeah. Well, I do help guide that part. And I think with money coaching, a lot of times it's quite militant. You got to do this, and this is my formula. I have sort of a sliding formula, like, rules of thumb, right? There are rules for, if you want to be able to retire at this time, we can figure out how much you need to put toward that. If this is what your cost of living is, this is how much you should sort of spend on fun. There are some rules of thumb, but they're not immovable. They're individual to each person. And so we can adjust and slide things. Right now, in the next year, 2 years, your goal might be very different than what your goal is for long term. And so how aggressive do we need to be in what area? Enabling people with the confidence to be able to make that decision for themselves, because I won't coach them forever. We're building autonomy, like confidence, like you're going to be able to make financial decisions with assurance that all right, these are the dollars I have. How am I going to make them work for me? And deciding that what is really, maybe, a lot of people got cooped up in a smaller house over the maybe space is what you really want.
Right.
You're going to take the foot off the gas in a different area. Maybe you didn't get to travel and you socked away a bunch of savings. And now you want to put the pedal to the metal in your travel budget. It's that these things are not permanent. It's a flow. It's a currency. So the money is going to change. Where you direct it is going to change over time. And what I help people do is understand that they're the captain, right? They're in their ship. They're out to sea. Go catch your fish and decide what you're going to do with them, right? Off you go. So that's what I aim to do, is help people to feel like stand in your power with your money. Know that your money is here to serve you, right?
That's you're not in the drive. It's interesting because you're not in the driver's seat.
Yeah, no, it's not my money. I'm here to I'm honestly, like, I have this reel, I'm running next to my daughter learning to pedal her bike, and she just kept driving into the road, and my job was just to put her back on the sidewalk, and that's what I'm here to do for people. And that's what I think good coaches do. I can't be with you when you go to the bank. I can't be with you when you're in the store making a decision. It's got to be up to you. And so it's about building that confidence, that innate, I got this, right?
Yeah. So is that I got this attitude, is that self-confidence or is that self-esteem?
Self-esteem, I think.
You think so?
Yeah, I think it's when you get that little win. Like even today, I had a client. She's in the States, and apparently your interest rates are can be a lot higher than they're allowed to be here in Canada. And it was 36% interest. And I was like, ooh, ooh. And it was, it was $1,400 or something. And I was like, I think we should probably, if it were me, we should get rid of this. And it would feel really good because the other stuff was all very manageable interest rates. Like this one is more predatory. And when you get rid of it, you're going to feel really good. So we made a plan, like a sprint, short term. And she paid that off. And it was just that little win. She was like, oh shit, I can do this.
Yeah.
And it was like, yes, you can do that. That's what I've been telling you. But you have to see it. You have to feel it. You have to have those experiences where you overcome something hard. And that's where I can have gratitude for debt. I get the opportunity to overcome something that I thought was defeating me. I thought I was the victim of, right? And actually I get to be the rescuer, and then I get to separate myself and realize this is just something that happened. How grateful am I that I got to improve my self-esteem through it. So it's awesome.
Do you think your clients come to you for a self-esteem boost and a money boost, or do you think they're exactly the same thing?
I think they're the same thing. I think it's honestly mostly about self-esteem. It's probably 90% self-esteem.
Wow.
Sometimes people come to me and they're like, oh, they're afraid to even look at their bank account, or they're like, oh, I'm an artist, and artists don't make money. And then you look at their accounts and you're like,
so much. Why do people say that?
Artists
don't make money.
The starving artist is an archetype, I guess. And then you look at what they make and you're like, you're out earning me. Like, what do you mean? Like, hang on a second. Like, you're actually killing it and you're giving yourself no credit for that, right? So
that's an interesting one.
Often it's about self-esteem, and it's believing that they have capacity and competence in order to get these things done. The math is simple, like income, expenses, like it's simple math. I'm not a math person. I'm very right-brained.
Gotcha.
I'm very creative. I attract a lot of people with ADHD, a lot of like artists, actors, comedians. Like I attract folks who believe that they're not good at math, and you don't have to be, right? Like if you have a business, get a bookkeeper. Like don't even do that to yourself. Focus on what you're great at, but in your personal, like know that you have this belt of tools and you can go to them. You understand, like, yeah, I'm putting money into a tax sheltered account and a tax deferred account. Like I understand these products. I understand how my banking works. When I open it, I get this visual. I just get to open my bank account and see like operating accounts killing it, savings accounts killing. Like I just get to look and I got this.
How does someone get a bookkeeper?
A bookkeeper?
Yeah, where should someone start looking for that? What's the appropriate protocol?
That's a good question. I have like sort of a couple of people that I refer to. I'm a financial counselor for the AFCPE in the States. And so our ethical guideline is that we don't pay or receive referral. So I have partnerships with folks that I know have similar values to me. So I would refer my clients who have businesses to bookkeepers. But to find a bookkeeper, I mean, that's a great question. I don't know. I'm sure you can find a bookkeeper in your area, but I would interview that person and make sure that you have similar values.
Okay.
Same with an accountant. Make sure that you have an accountant that...
What's the difference between a bookkeeper and an accountant?
Bookkeeper keeps all of the stuff, all of the costs and or incomes, expenses, GST, all the stuff neat and tidy. And your accountant is the one who manages the taxes. Your accountant can give you tax advice and knows all the write-offs, all the credits, all the things. And a bookkeeper is the one who makes the nice report to give to the accountant.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, it's sort of...
When you start a business, which one do you need first?
I would get, depending on your business, I would get a bookkeeper first if you're doing any kind of amount of money. Okay. And then an accountant is the one who can tell you like, oh, you should incorporate, or they're going to give you that kind of advice. And a bookkeeper is literally just going to keep, your QuickBooks or your FreshBooks or whatever systems you use neat and tidy, reports ready to rock. They're going to tell you how much GST you owe, and like all of that stuff will get communicated to you. And then if it's audited, all of that stuff comes through. You can just say, oh, perfect, I got the letter. I'll contact the bookkeeper, and then it's no stress on you.
Gotcha. Right. So for most business owners, that's a huge stressor for them. It's like, oh, well, I can't afford an accountant or whatever. I only made $20,000 this year.
Yeah.
Well, do I even need a QuickBooks? Should I do it myself, or what?
One, you can, but what was really refreshing for me to learn was that you can hire a bookkeeper twice a year. You just keep everything and then give it to them every 6 months, and then they'll bill you 4 hours. You don't have to have it on a constant, like every month doing the books. You can be like, I don't have enough transactions going on to do anything beyond, if you're only going to bill 20,000 in the year, maybe seeing a bookkeeper twice a year, mid-year and year end. And then that way you can carry it to your accountant or email it to your accountant, and or you can take that stuff and take it to a tax preparation place and pay your $200 for your business tax return,
Gotcha.
There's tiered ways to interact with bookkeepers and accountants, but that's not what a coach will do. A coach, I think being able to read, I can show you how to read your balance statements. I can teach you how to read, your profit and loss. But in terms of managing them, I think any great business owner should be doing what they do best, right? You for sure can attest to this. A great business owner is in their zone of genius. They're doing the thing that makes the business run, right? Don't be the bottleneck.
Yeah.
If math isn't your thing, don't be making mistakes out here when somebody who loves it or is naturally great at it, a savant, let them do it.
Right.
And be gratefully pay them. You know, I'm so glad to pay you to do this. It's such a great help to me.
Financial coach versus financial advisor. What is the real difference?
Financial advisors often have more of a transaction relationship. So financial advisors would give advice on specific products. So they would build out a portfolio for you. You should buy this many index funds and this many stocks based on your risk tolerance. And a financial advisor or financial planner can also help you with insurance, like life insurance, disability insurance. They can help you with like end of life. I'm blanking on the word, but it's a more comprehensive financial plan. And what a coach would do is I'm going to let you know exactly what an index fund is. I'm going to tell you what mortgage amortization is. I'm going to educate you about the products so that when you go out into an experience that is transaction in nature, sales in nature, like every time you walk into the bank, you're sitting in front of a salesperson. You know exactly what they're trying to sell you and whether or not you believe that's right for you, because you understand.
You're like the first line of defense. Financial coach is for people who want to get smart about their money so then they can engage an advisor if they need it.
Exactly. Or they can say, you know what, I'm going to decide to invest hands-on and I'm going to pick everything because it's not for me, but maybe you're into researching stocks or just like self-directed. I self-direct all my investments. And it saves you management fee. Or you go, I know all about it. I'm happy to pay a management fee. I'll buy mutual funds through my bank. I love that that's not my problem, but I'm building wealth over here. So there's pros and cons to every product. And so mine is like giving you not the weapon, but like the armor. So that when you go into those, I've met people who are like, so we signed a mortgage. I don't know how long it's for. And you're like, okay, like some people, sometimes it's such a scary thing. We talk about it so little and we build it up to be such a big money, to be such a scary thing. Every archetype in every movie, the rich guy is a villain,
Wow, that's a really good point.
Right? Or
how come there isn't a night? Well, why do you think they always mean?
I think that's a deeper.
Yeah, that's deep, right?
Right? Like if we think about culture as a whole and how classism and how we hold people in, there's definitely conditioning that comes through our media that to be rich is to be bad, is to be greedy, is to be right. So that belief around money, I work with so many people who believe that they just don't deserve it because somebody else is without, right? I can't have it. I can't have more than just enough and so they sabotage, right?
Woo!
But even
in the people's soul right now.
Yeah, like it's a big deal. It's the way we talk about money. Money is the root of all evil, right? Like the scripts that we get. It's in order to follow your dream and be an artist, you're going to be starving. You'll never be able to support a family. When are you going to get?
What's crazy about that is I figured out most, like especially music artists, because that's the world I came from prior to marketing. All of those people actually would have succeeded if they would have forced themselves to learn Facebook ads. If they forced themselves to figure that part out instead of getting really good at the guitar, but that's not what they're supposed to do because they're the artist, right? But imagine an artist who also knew how to run their own Facebook ads, didn't have to hire anybody. Mm-hmm. And then, was savvy enough to just borrow a bunch of credit cards and then pay them off. They would be absolutely dominating.
Yeah. Leverage, right?
Right. Leverage. Exactly. It's that easy. It's just that people, that sounds, the money and you shouldn't do a credit card and It's just excuses.
Yeah. It's so interesting. It's that pendulum, right? Like people are either like racking up debt, like, you know what, I'm just going to ignore it. Or they're so averse to risk. And there are people that, reside in the middle, but they're not as common, right? I never have debt, but I also never spend any money and I have very little fun. I go on no vacation or screw it, stick it on the card. Let's go.
Right.
It's these two like dichotomies of just like go for it and like absolutely not. Like I'm going to light it up tonight and I am not going to light it up tonight. Like it's both, they're just so opposite. But
you think people with more debt like tend to be more successful, like in terms of like entrepreneurs, like good entrepreneurs that leverage a lot of debt? A
lot is a hard thing, but like good entrepreneurs leverage, or they understand that it takes sometimes some upfront capital. And if you don't have it, to leverage debt to get it, but you can't be halfway on that. You have to go all the way, right? You have to be like, if I'm gonna leverage this, I have to be all in. Right. So I think that for me this year, I hired a business coach.
Yep.
And I went from one client to I said yes, I made that commitment, and I hired the coach. I didn't have the cash yet. And I swear to you, in 1 week, I signed 5 people.
Ooh.
It was like, it just came. And, so like, well, I guess I'll just pay that back. Like, that was no big deal.
It wasn't a big deal anymore.
Yeah. Like, and it's like, oh, and then I was like, okay. And then I finished that container, and then it like got quiet again. Oh,
That's exactly the cycle of coaches. And that's why I always, whenever I get a new coach or something, I always keep my mentor on the side.
Yeah.
And then I funnel what's going on in coach land with mentor land, because mentor doesn't actually need, the difference between a coach and a mentor, in my opinion, is the mentor doesn't need your money.
Yeah. There's a different level of connection there when you have that mentorship. Yeah, no, it's having a coach for me. And I know that sounds like a plug because I am a coach, but like having it was just that commitment I needed to myself.
Yep.
It's the commitment that the universe needed me to do. And as soon as I, reestablish my contract with my coach or do something like that, it just flows. And then it's, and it's just been growing and growing and growing, and been getting better and better. So it's the hope to have the best idea is something I'm like, I want the best idea. And oftentimes that requires collaboration. It requires an objective perspective from the outside inward, looking at it going, oh, what about, or, okay, when that happens, what comes up for you? Even just helping you explore that, whatever it is that you're deciding on. And so the same thing with money. Okay, so when you're deciding that this is going to be first, you pivoted on me, you're going to do something different. So what brought that up? Or you've overspent and self-sabotaged your plan. Like, what, can you tell me what happened there? Like, explore it with me. It's not an answering to, and that's where coaching is. It's collaborative. We're working together, right? We're working together toward your goal. So yeah, I don't know, off on a tangent now, but.
Awesome. Well, hey, let's tell the people where they can connect with you if they want to get their money right, if they want to have a judgment-free zone. Let the people know where they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, well, I usually hang out on Instagram mostly at elbie.coaching. Or you can go to my website, lbcoaching.com. You can send me an email, Lauren, Lauren, at lbcoaching.com. Wherever it is, however you find me, I'll get back to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for hanging with us. All Equity Podcast. Lauren, you're dope. Thank you for inspiring me. I'm about to go on a bike ride and just soak in all these gems you gave me today.
Integrate.
Ooh, I'm just like my whole body is like, oh, I needed that.
I'll have to go dream about present Kevin and future Kevin and make some stuff happen. Yeah, no, thank you, Kevin. You're such a nice person to talk to. I really appreciate it. Make it very comfortable.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thanks for tuning in to the All Equity Podcast. Until next time.